You talk about poor maternal health care, limited access to basic health, universal access is limited. You talk about education, anything that you want to, even clean water, which is safe, is a challenge to get. But how is it so that a continent that is endowed with vast natural resources is in this quandary? So it's important to understand and step back and look at our history. And you talk about slavery, you talk about colonialism, and now with this freedom that we purportedly are said to have, what's going wrong? And then you then begin to understand that the global financial and economic systems are set up in a manner that ensures that capital importing countries are always the suppliers of raw materials, and the systems are there to pin down us so that we will never develop. We will continuously serve the developmental interests of other countries, particularly the global north that are industrialized, because they really need raw materials. There are no two ways about it. But the broader discussion that I also want to bring here is about the financing for development, or development financing aspect of it. So with the high-level panel report on illicit financial flows that was released and adopted by the AU, African Union in 2015, we got to understand that Africa was losing more than 50 billion to illicit financial flows, and the main culprits behind the loss are multinational corporations, accounting for roughly 65% of the losses. So what we need to understand is that there are destination countries that are recipients of these illicit financial flows out of Africa. They have also a key role to play in making sure that they prevent and also track back and return the money that would have been stolen from this continent. But this is just a symptom. So the Stop the Bleeding campaign was launched as a result of the HLP, the high-level panel report on illicit financial flows, called the Mbeki report. But also through the years, there's been that acknowledgement that illicit financial flows are just but a symptom. This is why the consortium looks at a multivalent, we use multiple lenses when it comes to the development finance problem. For instance, we look at it from a debt justice perspective, the linkage between debt and illicit financial flows. You also look at it from labor justice, the better working conditions and better salaries for those that are working within the sector, or the various sectors that are being prejudiced by illicit financial flows. This is a question of also gender justice. When we talk about that inequality, that gender inequality, the need to bridge the gap between men and women, we also need to understand the role that illicit financial flows play. Even the political field, you can't have democracy when those that are captured, those that are corrupt are perpetuating the same rule. They are bound to shrink the space for citizens to participate. So when you talk about the impact of development finance, it has got an immense collateral damage, which means that every player has a key role to play in Africa to curb illicit financial flows. Even professionals, they are the back end of assisting the illicit flows from Africa, your bankers, your accountants, your lawyers. So you want a Pan-African perspective to these professionals to be able to understand and even set the systems, professional standards at global level and even at continental level, to ensure that we have a key role to play in terms of propping up financing for development on the continent. So you look up at the Stop the Bleeding campaign, you're talking about it from that big tent approach. Of course, it has got a consortium that is coordinating, or the steering arm of the campaign, and it's composed of 7 Pan-African civil society networks, and then they touch on their core issue is, or core advocacy issues vary from tax justice, debt justice, from labor justice, gender, feminist approach, and the legal angle lends to it, or rather the professional setup, that the professionals that also have to be involved in the agenda to fight for illicit financial flows. But it's all about understanding that in the broader scheme of things, political will is what we must generate so that we can bring action I'm saying political will in the sense that the problem is known, the solutions are known, but what is lacking is implementation. And this political will is not only about at country level, it's political will which is needed at community level, country, regional, global level. You also need multinational corporations to begin to understand the impact of their aggressive tax planning behavior. It's actually murder in a strict sense because it has got graves here in Africa. It's actually a violation when people are go hungry. People should begin to acknowledge those linkages. You also want the leadership, the political leaders in countries such as USA, in EU, to begin to understand that how long can we continue to pillage resources on the continent?